Hey, good morning. It's a beautiful day where I am. Today's July the 13th. So now we're 4 months. Actually, this is the fourth. We're into the fifth month now of the lockdown since I was told to go home on March the 13th. So there you go. One nice thing about it, though, I live close to an international airport, and there hasn't been a lot of planes flying, which is nice. And also, there hasn't been as much chemtrailing as there was back in 2019. This year they're still doing it, but it's not as much, and we're not getting as cool of temperatures. The last month, we didn't see any rain at all, which was welcome. It was nice because we had so much rain in 2019, and there was a lot of rain this spring, but now it's been quite nice. But can't go without rain forever. So it was nice. We had rain a couple of days ago, and it was just absolutely beautiful. About 1.5 inches of rain where I am. Good for the garden. Anyway, that's not what I'm talking about today. Today, I touched on this subject before. I talked about the tribulation, how I think that's what's happening right at the moment. As a Christian, I'm looking at what's going on, looking at the signs like Jesus told us to look at the signs. And you don't have to be a psychic, and you don't have to be a prophet to look in the future and kind of see what's going to happen, because all you have to do is look back at history. And today I'm going to talk a little bit about war. And when I was going to school, I wasn't a very good student, I admit that. I'm a lot better student now. When I look at war, I always thought that they were kind of spontaneous things. They just kind of spring out of nowhere, and they're spontaneous. Well, wars are not spontaneous at all. A lot of planning goes into wars, and wars always benefit a very small group of people. They don't benefit the most of us. I mean, I've never benefited from any war that our country's ever been in. I'd like somebody to give me some examples, because I don't see any benefits of any of the wars that we've been in, other than having, where I live, we have the Highway Heroes. And in order to be a hero on the Highway Heroes, you have to be in the back of a hearse, in a box. And to me, that's not a benefit to my country. It just should be called the Highway of Sorrows. If you look at a lot of the wars, or all the wars now, if you really analyze it, they were fomented in the interests of international individuals that control money, control corporations, and so on. Do they benefit me? No. And do they benefit you? No. And that brings me to my point. Now I look at, and I had to write down some notes, I'm going to look at this, the war on drugs. For example, Richard Nixon declared war on drugs in the 1970s, and I have to ask an honest question. Where are we now on the war on drugs? There's more drugs on the streets now than ever before. There's more methamphetamine, there's more cocaine, and especially opioids. Excuse me. The war in Afghanistan has really contributed to the opioid epidemic on our streets. And if you look at that war, when the war started, I'm talking about 2001, 2002, 23 days after 9/11, there was an invasion going on in Afghanistan. In order to be ready for an invasion, it takes a lot of preparation. So somebody was ready for that. Okay? And about the time that invasion happened, when Allied troops or coalition troops went in, Afghanistan produced about 12 to 15% of the world's opium supply. And now it's almost 90%. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, but it's around 90% of the... So now, what to do with all this extra opium? Well, we got opioids. Now we have fentanyl and all these different kind of opioid drugs on the streets. Not just used in hospitals, but people get addicted to them, and it's touched my family. My grandchildren, I have 2 grandchildren, they don't have a father because of these opioids. Now some people say, well, that's that guy's fault that he took them. Well, maybe, but the point is they're available and they're easy to get and they're extremely addictive, and once you start on them, so the war on drugs has been a big failure. How about the war on terror? That's been a big failure too. There's more terrorism now than ever. Terrorist bombings. If you all you have to do is look in the news. You see terror. Oh, there's my cat. Hi, Sporty. Anyway, the terrorist bombings, and now the war on terror, has it succeeded? No, it seems to have made it worse. How about the war on cancer? Think about it. There's more cancer today than ever before. I mean, in Canada we had Terry Fox. He did his run back. He died back in 1980. I think it was 81 or 82. And and because of his foundation, billions of dollars have been raised for cancer research. And what's happened? There's more cancer today than ever before. I was at my dentist, and they're saying, "Do you want to sign?" They wanted me to have a scan on my mouth for mouth cancer. I hadn't even heard of that. I said no. And they said, "Well, can you sign this form to say that you don't want it?" I said, "No, I'm not signing anything." It just seems to be that the more we push these things, these wars on different things, the worse they get. I mean, look at the Cancer Society, for example. Think about what is the Polo Society? If there's a Polo Society, what do they do and what do they talk about? Well, they meet and they promote the sport of polo, right? That's what it's for. So what does the Cancer Society do? They promote cancer. They talk about, well, we're raising money for cancer research. It sounds like it just makes a lot of research people rich and pharmaceutical companies rich, but the war on cancer is a big failure, isn't it? Now, there's another one. The new war is on what? It's on this virus. And after 4 months of being locked down, it's the law now. In my town, I can't go anywhere, any store, any public place without a mask on. Well, if anybody knows anything about viruses, they're so extremely small that it could go right through that mask. So the mask, how is the mask helping? If anything, the mask is just going to make things worse, isn't it? See, again, there's a war on a virus, an enemy that we can't see. Right? So what's that going to lead to, do you think? I know. They're going to force us to take a vaccine. That's the next thing. Right? And that vaccine won't work. And then it'll be another vaccine. And then it'll be another vaccine. The war against viruses. Right? And we have to be aware of this. But this, I'm telling you, you're hearing it from me. And maybe you've heard it from somebody else. But that's what's coming. Forced vaccines and the masks. Oh, that's my favorite thing. The mask. Because now, when everybody's got a mask on, you can't see their face, right? You can't identify them. We have cameras everywhere now, surveillance cameras, which, incidentally, the surveillance cameras have been promoted. And how? Well, the knockout game. Remember the knockout game a couple years ago where these kids would just, or people would just up and, like, at random knock someone out, just punch them out. Just at random, walking along and hi, you smile at them and then just bang, hit them, right? And you wonder, well, why would somebody do such a thing? Well, obviously they're being paid to do it. Why? Because somebody needs some talking points to push the camera agenda. We need cameras, surveillance cameras everywhere, right? That was another war. Okay, but now you mark my words. Somebody with a mask, or somebody's, maybe more than one, will go and there will be a mass shooting. There's going to be something happen where they can't be identified. They'll be caught on camera but can't be identified. So what to do? Problem, reaction, solution. Just like every war that we've ever had, there's a problem created, then there's a reaction, and then there's we got the solution. Well, guess what? The solution to this, and I hope I'm wrong, but I don't think so. Because again, I look in the past and now I'm looking into the future. The solution to the problem with the masks is going to be what? Chip implant. Right? What's going to happen is your DNA will be digitalized and that'll be your number. The DNA, the technology for this is there now. There's computers now in the world where they would be able to download everybody's DNA digital number, and that's your identity, and you will be implanted with a chip. And at first it'll seem, this will be great. You know, you go to the grocery store, you go to the hardware store to buy stuff, you won't even have to go through a checkout counter. There will be no checkout counter. There will be a chip reader, right? You'll grab whatever you want, you'll walk right outside, it'll just scan everything, and you'll automatically be billed for it through your account. Now that sounds good on the outset, but here's the problem with that. Because it's controlled by artificial intelligence, technocrats will be able to start changing the algorithms. So at first, it'll be nice and convenient, but pretty soon, if you jaywalk, you'll get a ticket. You'll get billed for that. If you drink one too many beers, well, guess what? That's wrong. And they'll be able to dial it down so that you are totally under control. If you sleep in the morning, you'll get dinged for it. If you don't show up to work exactly on time, you'll get dinged for it. If you do anything against their so-called rules, or if you utter one thing that's wrong, you'll get dinged for it. It'll get to the point where you won't even be able to think of anything wrong in their eyes, and you'll get dinged for it. That's what's coming. And that's not a future I don't like what's going on right now. It sucks. I go out to the store and I got to wear a mask. I tried to walk into a place the other day with no mask, and this is the first I'd heard of it, because I don't watch the news. I was yelled at, and I was treated like I was a criminal because I didn't have a mask. I said, I don't have a mask, and they yelled at me like I was and it made me feel this big, just because I didn't have a mask on. And I told one of the guys, I said, you realize what's going on, and I told him about being microchipped like a dog. Well, that's just the way it is. I said, but the problem is we're all going along with it. That's why it's happening. If everybody said no, but we've been conditioned and indoctrinated, there's just no way. I don't see us getting out of this one. So but here's the good news, okay? The good news is Jesus Christ, right? And Jesus said, if you confess me before men, I will confess you before God. If you are ashamed of me before men, I will be ashamed of you before God. Okay? So we have to get on our knees and start praying and asking God to save us through Jesus Christ our Lord. And I'm going to give you a couple examples here of how people, famous people, confessed Christ and became very successful. One was a baseball player named Gary Carter. He confessed Christ in front of a national audience, and he was one of the greatest baseball catchers ever, besides Johnny Bench. Okay, there was a guy named Mark McGwire. Mark McGwire he went through a string of injuries, and for a couple of years he couldn't really play. He had a foot injury. He had some problems, and then I saw him one year. He really started to pour it on. He was hitting home runs, and he was playing great. And I remember watching an interview with him. I just happened to have the TV on, and he confessed Christ in front of a national audience, well, international audience. He says, Christ is my Lord. And sure enough, that year he won, and he had stiff competition that year. I think he won the batting title by 1 home run. Okay. Another example was Evander Holyfield. I remember I saw the first fight when he beat Mike Tyson, and I think Mike Tyson was at 20-1 odds to win. Nobody thought that Evander Holyfield could win. He was a light heavyweight. He gained a bit of weight, and then he entered into the heavyweight. And I remember my brother-in-law and I went to the fight. There was a pay-per-view a place that had pay-per-view, and it was hard to get. It was pretty expensive. But anyway, we managed to get in to watch the fight. And I'd seen an interview with Holyfield before this. Again, a national audience. He confessed Christ in front of everybody, in front of a national audience on television. And I remember going to that fight, and my brother-in-law was, Tyson's going to win, man. He's pumped, he's jacked, he's really trained well. And I said, no, I don't think so. He said, what do you mean? I didn't tell him that. I just said, I don't think so. I think Holyfield's going to win. And he did. He outclassed Tyson. He made him, he outclassed him. He outboxed him. He outfought him. And then I think just to prove the point, they had another fight, and Tyson got so mad he bit him on the ear. He tried to bite him on both ears, right? He couldn't, because he couldn't win. He just couldn't beat him. So what I'm saying is, I don't think Jesus is a boxing fan. I don't think he's a baseball fan, but I think he blesses people that confesses him in front of people. And I think that that's what we need to do. If we're going to get through this next phase of human history, I think that we need Christ now more than ever. And anyway, with that, I hope everyone has a nice day, and talk to you later.